Hi there, Paula. Ah, Elizabeth. Hola, Ruth. Shalom. Laurie. Shalom. Hi, Kristen. Hey, Martin. You're in Liz B class. Nice. Mary Beth. Hi there, Andrew. Guten Tag. Hi, Lorraine. Joe, nice to see you. Hélène, ça va bien? Nathalie. Hi, everyone. I'm trying to hold this in. Hey, TNG. Good morning. Vanessa. Hola. ¿Cómo está? Trying to hold this. The sky is lovely. Oh, that's lovely, Jessica. Annie, it is warm, although I've been putting my jacket on and off because I've been working really. I am on a slant. I'm trying not to give away all the views. Hi, Janice. Because I'm in a really rather remarkable place. But yes, I am on about a, I don't know, 45, 50-degree angle here. So it is steep. Um, so I have I have lots to talk about, but a big part of my focus today, it isn't really. The Kimball's not off kilter. Is Linda's birthday today? Is Linda here? Yeah, you want the rolling? No, Linda is. Well, give Linda a big birthday hug from us, and tell Linda that we always sing for birthdays. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on time. Happy Saturday morning to all of you around the world. It's a real pleasure to have you all here. If by chance you haven't met me before, my name is Patrick Toomey. I live in the town of Banff in Banff National Park. Hi, Dish. Um, and where I am right now, actually, a couple of other just technical things. So I am literally, uh, Catherine, I believe that smiley face, if that's Catherine, it's not coming through, but hopefully that's my mom. We tried to put in Catherine Finn's Nana, but it hasn't come through on the whole message. Um, but I believe that's mom there. And you're in Middleburg, Virginia. So just as a quick hello here, everyone. If you happen to be new to Hago at all, first of all, welcome. It's a wonderful experience. It's wonderful being here. It is my mom. Mom, I'm going to have to change your sign in again because it didn't work. But um, so I actually spent the night at mom's house last night. We were watching Olympics, of course. But we're watching on Hago. This is more or less like YouTube Live. So um, I see about four boxes, right? It's interactive. When I'm hiking or walking, obviously I'm not watching the screen because of safety. But I am up on the side of a mountain. Um, and I am up on a very, very special mountain here. Um, of course, Donna, Toby, and Alice, I love you both. Give your grandmother a big hug because I have hugged your grandmother before too. And it's lovely to be hanging out. Well, everyone, I was originally, my intent for this particular experience, there's snow blowing at me right now. My intent was to go and climb either the east end of Rundle, and it's Mount Rundle we always see from Banff, or Howling Peak. Well, a Chinook was blowing in. If you joined me yesterday in Calgary at all, the famous Chinook winds were blowing across. The wind going across the top of the mountain is having gusts up to 100 kilometers an hour. So it was quite easy to decide not to go to the top of one of those mountains, Howling Peak, yeah, rather than Howling. However, I have come to one of the most famous and sacred places of the Stoney Nakoda First Nation. I have been meaning to come here for quite a while, and I was testing my reception. I knew I'd get up higher because down at the base, I didn't really have enough reception. But I am at the very easterly peak of the Canadian Rockies. Now, all of the Rockies, Fahrenheit, it's probably 35, so it's just above freezing. I'm at the very eastern peak, and I am at Mount. So I don't know if I have any Calgarians on today, but officially Mount John Laurie, and I want to talk about John Laurie because it's appropriate that he had a mountain named after him. But we all call it Yam or Yamnuska. And this is one of the most spectacular mountains you can see anywhere in the world. And look at me, I'm at the base of these cliffs in giant scree fields right now. Hi, Sue. Hey, Chloe. Sorry. So I have come scrambling up here It was so warm that I had my gloves off, but I'm hanging on to limestone. Ready for this, everyone? Now, as I say, this is the most easterly mountain. Those are the foothills of the Canadian Rockies out there. This is when you drive from Calgary into the Rockies, this is the first mountain that you see. Out in the distance, all of this land is the Stoney Nakoda First Nation. There are 3 bands. It is reserve land. Hi, Elizabeth. It is spectacular. I've been really scrambling up scree fields. Let me show you what I've been coming up. So when it looks like the gimbal is all wonky, it really is this steep. So on my feet, I've got my cleats. Hey, Lise. I did have an ice pick in my car, and I actually wish I had brought it. But because it's warm when I'm in the snow, I am digging my feet into it. We do come rock climbing here. I did climb that, Joanne. Literally. So I have my backpack here. And I have the best news of the whole thing when you get up here because I have my cup of green tea. See? So this is the best part of any climb. Now, incidentally, I'm not actually that high. I am about 1,750 meters or about 5,700 feet. So really, I'm not much higher than where I live, but because these are the lower mountains, this mountain gets up to 2,300 meters, about 7,200 feet at the top. It is plenty high, but if you look at the cliffs behind me, so these are all bolted climbing routes. It takes to climb the whole thing from these cliff base. So it takes normally it only takes me 45 minutes or an hour to get up here. It's taken me about an hour 25 today because of all the snow and everything, because it's slippery and I'm being careful, needless to say. Sorry. But there's bolted routes up there. It takes you about 6 or 7 hours to rock climb to the top. And then from the top, you would hike down the back for about 2.5 hours to get back. You can actually get back down off the front in 14 seconds, but you only do that once. So, now the snow is blowing around, but you can look in the distance. Where I'm looking across the valley that's the route into Kananaskis country, named after Chief Kananaskis of the Stoney Nakoda First Nation. So once again, I am on Treaty 7 territory. There are 3 bands that constitute the main reserve of the Stoney Nakoda here. And they kept moving. They always came up here to hunt right up to where Banff is. This is the land of the bison. You can just imagine them down here. And they kept refusing to sign treaties until they signed Treaty 7 up in the 1880s up to this area. Now, I'm going to come back here in the fall at some point because this is one of the few areas in our mountains where you have huge stands of deciduous trees. And so the side of this mountain in the summertime comes alive with beautiful flowers and colors. Jessica, a bison is a buffalo, but there are no buffalo in North America. It's the North American bison. And then you get incredible colors down below. There's actually on that lake out there, which is all frozen, there is a lodge out there that's owned by the Nakota people. It used to be a hotel, and they've used it somewhere as a retreat now, which is really neat. I don't know what's about COVID, of course, closed everything down. But you'll see the big open flats. If you've seen my YouTube video of the massive extreme winds, I was standing out in those flatland areas out there. We call those the Morley Flats or the Minitini Flats. And often that area is actually dry, even when we're cold and snowy, because this is the lee of the mountains, these huge mountains. Oh, here's some ravens are just telling us stories right now. But the Minitini Flats will be dry because the weather will go up and over it. If you watch a ridge in the distance there, that is where you make your way towards Scott Lake Hill, which is the second highest point between Banff. It's the second highest point on the Trans-Canada Highway. Sorry, the highest point between Banff and Calgary. The highest point on the Trans-Canada Highway is the border with British Columbia at the Continental Divide. Now, when I came back, so I was in Calgary last night, and when I left this morning, I drove out here in, again, howling wind. And, oh, sorry, I'm hearing different animals telling me stories. I don't know if you picked that up. It was echoing off the cliffs. But I came off and I turned off, and down here there's actually a dam in the distance. So that was built by TransAlta Utilities. There was a little community there called CB, which was actually dismantled. If it weren't for that dam, you could actually float in a canoe all the way from Lake Louise or Banff all the way to Calgary. But here you'd hit the wall. And what did the fish say when it swam into a wall? And if I were not even. If I were 10 minutes further into the mountains, there'd be way more snow. But this is the dry section. Let me just show around in the distance. You might even see as the light's coming down, and you'll see the wind is coming, chasing down the valley. This is, and Jessica, it's a joke. This is, of course, the Bow Valley. So that's the mighty Bow River. There's Bow Valley Provincial Park. Yes, Jessica, it swims into a wall. But you'll see how much snow's out there, and you can see all of the angles of these different mountains as they're pointing from west to east. And so it is snowy, snowy, snowy at home inside there. But this is this dry area through here, and there's lots, pretty much, Joe, and there's lots of horses out there. The Stony Dakota have a great horse tradition and rodeo tradition. So I do and I don't. Sorry, I'm going to turn around from the wind here. You'll feel the wind howling at me. You get a sense how steep this is. So let's go up a little more. I'm careful around the cliff faces, incidentally, because of rock fall. So I want to talk about the geology here. But the wind is just coming up now and circling around. But as we're wandering up here, so you can see how people have taken steps. So I ran into a lot of people down in the parking lot, and they're doing a loop walk around the mountain. They go up to the top. I cut off to the way up to the cliffs. These are for rock climbers, and we go up and actually rock climb up there. We're working through that one, Annie. So these cliffs are all bolted for climbing, you see, and they're quite famous. But ready, Helen, for some geology? I am walking on really very young, compressed rock under here. The rock on top there is one major Cambrian thrust, an Elon thrust formation. That rock, to split the difference, is about 470 million years old. This is the same rock, incidentally, you find on the side of Castle Mountain and Mount Wilcott, which is out in Field, and of course the Burgess Shale. So this one is also full of fossils from that Cambrian period and the birth of multicellular life on our planet. That was all shoved up and over this very soft, young, compressed rock underneath me, which was compressed down here about, oh great, Kelly, welcome, about 70 million years ago, because that's when all of this rock was pushed up and out of the ground. So if you can imagine, that giant cliff face has pushed up and compressed this soft rock down, and underneath me here are these belts of coal, which is why they were coal mining in the early days, well, till 1979, in the town of Canmore, which I'll do a tour this afternoon, and hopefully Mum will be there, because that's, of course, our hometown. I live, obviously, in Banff now, but that was all mining. But that rock up there is still limestone and dolomite, whereas this is all shale down here. It's a fascinating formation, and even though that's 2,200 meters up there, 7,200 feet, that much rock again has eroded away over time. Has anyone seen that movie, Legends of the Fall? I'm sure you have. Yet during that film, much of it was filmed up here. Yeah, one of the First Nations Indigenous leaders in it was actually, there's a film of him sitting out here on the cliff. And I'll tell you a fun story from both my childhood and Finn's childhood is across the valley in a clearing in the distance there. There's an old ranch in there, but just beyond it, yes, he was, John. Yeah, he's been back. He did Jesse James in Banff too. But there's Camp Chief Hector out there, and when I was a child, we would sleep in teepees and go there. And then Finn went for several years to Camp Chief Hector, and the Stony Dakota would talk about this Yamnuska, which means Stone Wall Mountain, and this is a sacred site to them, and they would talk about the formations. And at the bottom, even though I am not a person of faith, I asked permission of the Great Spirit to come up here because it's considered a sacred site. And so I asked that out of respect for their culture. But this rock of wall here, are you ready for this? This is another reason why I almost, sure, Ruth, but I almost feel as though I should have talked about this tour more. I just didn't know if I was going to come here or not yet. Well, the Great Spirit would be their concept of not God, but if I say God, it's an easier understanding. But of course, indigenous beliefs were much more holistic, more like Gaia, if you know the term Gaia, the Greek term for the living earth. Um, Sort of, yeah. But, a beautiful concept. But this mountain here is listed alongside. Jessica, you don't want to type huge things like that, please, because it takes up the whole screen, okay? Um, but this is listed alongside Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, all of the ancient sacred sites around the world. I am on side of one of the most sacred sites on planet Earth for indigenous culture, the giant stone wall of Yamnuska. So why is it called John Laurie? And why do I feel happy that it's called John Laurie, which sounds like a very Western name? And it's because in 1961, the Stoney Nakoda Nation applied to have the name changed from their name of Yamnuska to John Laurie or White Cloud, because John Laurie from 1944 to 1956 headed, yes, Robert, no, I gather that, headed the Indian Association of Alberta. Now, you all know that we don't really use the term Indian anymore, unless you're referring to the billion wonderful people in India. But nevertheless, that was the association. And he advocated very specifically for full suffrage, full rights, voting rights for the Indigenous people. And when he passed away, they wanted to name this mountain after him as a thank you. So it is legitimately an incredible honor to be handed to someone. John Laurie was also a teacher in Calgary, and just not far from where Mom lives is John Laurie Boulevard. And so that's the story of John Laurie. And it's nice to talk about, a good person who acknowledged the importance of Indigenous culture in this country. So it's pretty lovely. Thanks, everyone. Now, I can keep scrambling up, but I'm not going to go too much higher because it's getting so warm. It is steep. It is steep, but just to answer some of those more technical questions. So what am I doing to climb up here? Well, I asked the Stoney Nakoda people permission to come up here and to be safe, and I feel safe. I have just my regular shoes on, my Hokas, but I put on these cleats. I actually move more. See, Mom, isn't it wonderful? I move more into the snow for going up, and I kick into it. And I'll kick in and make a hole where I can actually level my foot out. So my feet are soaking wet, but whoopee, it's a warm day. It's above freezing out here. Yeah, at the top. So I'm down here. You can get stuck. Do you know they do rescues on here quite often? So the people who are doing, there's a loop hike around, and it's nice. I wanted to come up to the scree, and I wanted to come up for these spectacular views. But in terms of this kind of hiking, of course, I am very accustomed to it. Elise, you could slide down on your bum, but I assure you, your bottom would not enjoy that for weeks. Janice, do you know, it's going down, this is why it's so much more fun to ski tour. You hike up when you're touring skis and you ski down, right? Or even more fun to have a parachute, although I would no more parachute off the side of this than fly to the moon today because I would be whacked into the side of the cliff. But where this is actually a bit better for the knees going down is these big scree fields. You just bend your knees as if you're skiing and you let yourself slide a little ways. But it is about as steep that I will take you on a climb without actually being roped up. Now the wind is just starting to pick up again. You can see though that the tree line, I'm not above it yet. And the tree line could actually go to the top of the cliffs. It's just simply too steep for anything to grow up there. Now, how have these cliffs formed? As I say, that's big, hard, old rock. And then the main effect on erosion, sure, wind plays a role, but it's the freeze and thaw. But let's just come up on the snow. So when you watch people doing real mountaineering, I have my big gloves, but I was so hot in the trees at the bottom. I even, for a couple of minutes, took my shirt off. That's how warm I was. but you can step right in to the snow, you see, and you can actually make a good hold for yourself. But because these are all designed for climbing, it's actually, Scree is quite forgiving, believe it or not, and you will eventually come to a stop. Joe, oh, for rock climbing, yeah. So there's a company in Canmore. A friend of mine's one of the part owners. It's called Yamnuska. That's if you ever want to take a course on avalanche prevention or an introduction to rock climbing or ice climbing. They teach that stuff, and they bring people out to some bluffs down here where you can do some climbing. No, Janice, I'm not using poles, and I'm not anti-poles. I think it's a good conversation, that one. See, I'm going to see. I think it's a long shot, but I'm going to see if I can prop everybody up here for a second. There you go, there. Oops. This is what it's like to get rocking. I'll just see if I can. So, this might fall over. Thanks. Everyone, by the way, if you haven't met Elizabeth, who's there, Elizabeth is my friend in Victoria who does wonderful tours. And Mom, you missed it the other day, but Elizabeth did a tour in Sydney, which is such a beautiful town. My mom lived there for years. So I brought my other jacket today, which I haven't put on. It's kind of a cool jacket. My other one has zips underneath so I can breathe as I'm climbing. Really, the toque I'm wearing is much for wind for all of you. When I was hiking up, I took it off because I was just getting so hot. Really, you always want to manage sweat, right? Because as you're moving up, it's hard work. And I feel it. My heart is moving. And, so you get hot, but you don't want to get too hot. Now, you all know my because Lillian, it's warm. Whoops, we might get blown over. The wind's gusting up here. It's not hard to breathe, Jessica. It's a great question. I'm not high enough for any of that, right? I'm just high enough to be working hard more of the angle that I'm walking up. And when you're on snow, or if you're on scree, every step you slide back a quarter step. So maybe it's only 2 kilometers up, but it acts like 3 because of the work. But the temperature right now in my car at the base, it was 2 or 3 degrees, and so it was actually quite warm. But I have liquids with me, and normally I just bring water, but I went and got a Gatorade. I haven't drunk it yet, but staying hydrated is pretty important, of course. I'm a huge fan of green tea, by the way, because it doesn't dehydrate you either, right? Like coffee is not a good thing because you're sweating so much. So, excuse me, this wind is so dry out here. You'll notice there are snowflakes blowing around me. I don't think it's really snowing. I think the wind, and the one thing I can't show you is back up towards Banff in the distance, because the wind is still the Chinook that formed over Calgary yesterday. And Paula, I think you wrote just a brilliant piece about them. The Chinook winds are these massive winds, and this is what forces them. So yesterday in Calgary, you saw this giant Chinook arch with me, if you were with me. The Chinook is formed right here, and it's where, across here, it's cold air gets shoved up over the Rocky Mountain Trench. That's gold in BC. That's about a 2-hour drive from here, almost exactly. That pushes up cold air, and it actually compresses warm air down. And that's what creates an arch to the sky, because, of course, warm air should really be lighter and cold air settling into the valleys. There's all sorts of different inversion stories, but that's what it is. And this is why this is one of the places that you actually see in the world here, the Mistral, but it is. And in fact, the Chinook helicopters are named after that, right? These great winds that come across. And so the Chinook arch will start to form here. And this is really day 2 or 3 of the winds that have been coming across. And this happens about 10 times every winter. And it makes Calgary so much warmer for what is one of the coldest cities in the world. But I just want to show you, as we talk about the wind moving across up here. Have a look. You might just see those clouds. And yesterday in Calgary, we were watching them a bit. But it is, Carl, it is spectacular. Just ripping across the top up here. And then we end up, of course, with this fantastic Alberta blue sky. And this is why, they are moving. And this is, do you have them over there too? Do you want to? Yeah, because it's funny, there used to be a military base in Calgary. It's all gone, but you'd see them practicing with the Chinooks. Now, look at the wind here, actually. Let me see. Look at that. There you go. So this is just the weather, Helen, it doesn't actually change that quickly. You can tend to see like I think everyone everywhere in the world says where they live, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. I don't think that's particularly true in Alberta here because the weather has to come all the way up and over from British Columbia, right from the Pacific coast. Now, when I was a child, I remember the only day school was ever canceled when we were kids. Joe, I'll answer your question in a second. But when we were kids, school was never canceled. Right now, it gets canceled a bit more for cold because of school busing. Um, and the we used to. Do you remember that you used to get a temperature marker on your television? I don't know if you remember that, but and I got up one morning and I want to say it was 14 degrees, like it was May, and the temperature dropped to minus 30 in about an hour. That's all Celsius. Um, and uh, and that was an Arctic front, the Omega block that comes over every now and then from Siberia. But that's rare and a little different. The reason why, though, so to Joe's question, the reason why there's not that much snow up here, there's a few reasons. Again, all the weather, all the precipitation has come over. We're on the very most easterly mountain. Just to remind you, right? This looks like the um, the prow of a ship, perhaps, right? This is the most easterly one. This is the last one or the first one, depending which way you're coming. This has traveled somewhere around 200 kilometers. That's how that rock on top has been thrust from west to east, somewhere around 200 kilometers. And all the weather that creates precipitation, unless you have a rare upslope effect, is actually getting drained out first by the coastal mountains in Vancouver, and then the Okanagan Valley, and then the Rogers Pass, and then the Columbia Mountains, and the Purcells, and then so Pam, my colleague, was in Revelstoke with bags of snow the other day. That's where it's snowing. So for it to snow here, you have to have enough precipitation left, unless we get something out of the north that maybe comes down from Edmonton and then circles around and hits us up here. That's where you get the rare upslopes. When that happens, the skiing is fantastic because it's dry and powdery. That's part of the reason there's not a ton of snow up here. Another reason is it's been above freezing, just a couple of degrees, but howling wind, and that means this exposed rock is just not hanging on to the snow. You'll see as I curve around to where the trees are, see there's a lot more snow in there because it's packed in, right? But these trees out here actually have a longer growing season than they do in Banff because of slightly lower elevation, more sun, and slightly warmer. Now, when I was driving out from Calgary, because I left kind of at the witching hour on a Saturday morning, I had, by our standards, bumper to bumper traffic until I came to a junction right there. You might see there's a building in the distance. I dislike that building enormously, but that is the access into Kananaskis country, which I'm going to have to do a YouTube video because it's the most beautiful place, I think, in the Rockies, and I have no reception there. But about 50% of all the traffic pulled off because they pull off that road. They drive into that valley, and you get to Mount Nakiska. And Nakiska was the ski hill that was built for the 1988 Winter Olympics. And so it's the closest big mountain to the city of Calgary. And so lots of people come in to ski on a weekend there. The reason I don't like that one building out there is because it's a casino. And I know because I worked for a few years, I was director of market development for this whole region. I know it's never made money and it's run through a series of concessions so that the actual community of Stoney Nakoda people make very little money off it. Now, having said that, aside from the odd meeting that I had there once upon a time, I was once coming back late from the city and I went in there to use the bathroom and I thought, maybe I'll get a bite to eat. Yeah, well, Annie, remember Trump lost all his money in a casino too. Um, but I don't know if the casino makes some money, yeah, they were still smoking in there. So I went in, turned around, left, and that was my experience going into their casino side. I just heard a squirrel telling me a story. Yes, Jessica, the water sure does freeze, and those lakes down there are frozen. There's a bit of a quarry below us as well that they use for some building. Just talking about animals, when I came and drove across here, you have seen with me many times on different experiences, you've seen mule deer, but I saw white-tailed deer, which are beautiful, and they have that beautiful white tail that stands up. I would never stop and try and show you a white-tailed deer, or never stop for a photo, because they run away at the drop of a hat. Mule deer stand with their big floppy ears and chew and look at you. White-tailed deer turn and run, and they bounce and jump. Um, how bad is a casino when it wins nothing? You know, Mikhail, the reality is just people don't use it enough, right? And it's I don't know if this has been happening in other countries, but I can tell you through COVID, somehow governments in Canada have been legalizing this online betting. And so, we watch hockey a lot. We stream it because we don't have, regular TV. And it ads for gambling everywhere. And it infuriates me. I just, there's just, yeah, I don't know, maybe the parent in me or something. Imagine how many people have been sitting at home through COVID and then sign up for something and turns out they get addicted to it. Yeah, it's just, that's a different conversation. It is terrible, I think. But in terms of other animals down here, so in this clearing, we actually have a friend who lives down. So this is more or less, this is all Stoney Nakoda land. All of it, actually, right from this side. The other side, you might see a little bridge down in the distance. Down through there is a Brewster. There's a golf course. And if you like golfing, it's fun. But this golf course always plays massive wind. So it's a neat one down there. But that's sort of a line. And if we went around the corner, we would go down about 15 minutes. And I would be not even 15, 12 minutes. I'd be at the little town of Exshaw. And I would love to take everyone to Exshaw sometime. It's the one working town. That's where Lafarge and Baymag are. They're the guys who make cement. Bye, Jessica. And what do they make cement of? They make cement from all of this. This is all limestone. And they grind this stuff up and they process it and it becomes sidewalks. And so, of course, our long-term plan is we're going to dismantle all these mountains, pave it all, and put up a giant shopping mall and a casino. Don't you think it's a great idea? Thanks, Chloe, for saying that. So, Martine, Chloe is exactly right. I will take you to see moose, but I'll probably do that in Anchorage or maybe in Yukon. We have fewer than 20 moose in Banff National Park. I could, Martine, all that said, the place I see the most moose, the most moose I ever see are driving in on Highway 40 into Kananaskis there. I would chain myself to a tree before they'd carve my mouth down. But we go in there. I see moose in there all the time, but I have no reception in that road. And trust me, because it's, we all love that valley. I might be able to do one at the ski hill at some point in the Kiska. Let me try that one day, but I'm not going to see a moose right there. But we do see moose. By the way, in there at the Delta Hotel, too, they built one of those Nordic spas. So they're not real hot springs, but they're massive pools. But yeah, we don't see a lot of that. But I just want to come back to my friend who lives down here. He was a dad back when Finn was playing hockey. So and they live out here. And he would show me pictures in the morning from in front of their house of a mother cougar and her 3 cubs walking along. This is cougar country out here. This is perfect hunting country. What are the cougars hunting here? Well, the Itaya Nakota people, the people from here, considered this a sacred mountain for all sorts of reasons, but also because it was such good hunting for bighorn sheep. So the sheep are around. I don't know where they are at the moment, but they will probably be over in the trees on the far side. But there are bighorn sheep all up and down here, just like Stony Lookout Mountain. But I'm hoping you're getting some just fat. It's hard to really capture this all in. Hey, Mary Lou. Now, Mary Lou's in Calgary. So, thanks, Patty. Mary Lou, where am I? There, I'm putting poor Mary Lou on the spot here, but so I could just about stand on my tippy toes and wave to Mary Lou and wave to my mom out there, because Calgary is really only, the edge of the city is really only a 45-minute drive from here. Now, let's start to go down a little bit, everyone. And so you can get a sense of how I will safely get down this mountain. So what I'm going to do is hug my arms in like this, lay down on my side, and start to roll. That's a good idea. That's really not a good idea at all. So what I'll do is, and I won't go too fast, I'm going to put my feet in, and then this is what Scree does. I'm sorry, I just coming down here, and then I let my foot get in until the Scree itself, and I'm really not going to be able to film it that well, but it's almost like skiing. So bend your knees. I am leaning forward almost like I'm in a skiing position. And then if I start to get at all out of control, then I sit down. Chloe, it'll totally blunt the cleat. Ruth, it won't take long at all to get down because once I get down out of the scree field, and you see where the snow is, those are more or less the paths you want to stay on. If you can ever be here, if you ever drive down here, I want to get down a little bit and look back, and you'll see the scree fields. But we all do it, and running down scree is fun. And yes, it absolutely will take a toll on my cleats, Chloe. Now you're making me think I should maybe even be taking them off. But I'm going to be getting back in the snow. I'm skidding down. That's exactly right. And yeah, I'll go through a good couple of pair of cleats every winter. And that's just, par for the course of living up here. But yeah, skidding down, but where, like Elise was saying, sitting on your bottom and sliding, this rock is pretty hardy. Like, that can leave a pretty good bruise. Tip for cleats. but yeah, they're already pretty worn out, this pair, but it'll be another pair soon. Everything's expensive, Joanne. Yeah, another pair of these cleats, I don't know, $25 or something. Very hard on your pants. And then if I feel like I were going to be slipping at all, I'd put my big gloves on, obviously, right? But coming up, there's several places where it's steep enough that really I have to have my hands down. There was this one point earlier on where I actually wish I had brought my ice pick with me. But let's head down a little bit more. And it's learning. Obviously, I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky over the years that I really don't have any knee problems at all. I've had shoulder surgery, but my knees have stayed in shape. Now, obviously, I've been a skier forever. But I will say one of the things I do, Annie, I'll be skidding until I get into the trees, and then it becomes a path. Thanks, TNJ. But one of the things I do at home is I have a balance board. It looks like a skateboard with a little roller in the middle, and I get on that, particularly at the start of ski season, and just do squats on it. And that's really good for tightening up the knees either side. And I will tell you, I mean, hand on heart, honest truth, every year I get older, I guess we all do, but every year that I get older, it just takes that much longer to train the legs for skiing and everything. As you know, I'm a avid cyclist. I have my bike on a trainer inside, but that doesn't do a lot. It does a lot for muscle strength, but it doesn't do a lot. But this kind of hiking like this, the coming down is usually not as fun as the going up. But you see, I'm just dancing along the snow here. Someone else had been walking through here. That was probably a bighorn sheep at some point. But the going up when you get on something this steep, it's just good old cardio. It's just, and sometimes I'll think to myself, I'm feeling fit. And then and you realize how hard you work. You're like, oh, I could be fitter. I'm just listening to a crow dancing. It's a raven singing. Oh, there he is. Or she. I don't know if you'll be able to catch it. Yeah, you don't want to twist a knee, of course. Knees matter. Knees are one of our still evolutionary mistakes, right? We're still kind of built to walk on all fours. Ellen, I don't know. I think it's the whole thing. Yeah, my ankles are not great, actually, Janice. I can twist ankles, so this is why I spend more time. I'm reasonably, compared to friends who I hike with and climb with, I'm pretty quick going up. I'd say I'm one of the slower ones going down, for just all those reasons. And if you've ever been walking down something like this and you twist an ankle, it's just not fun because you still have to come down, right? But you see, as soon as I get down more or less into those trees, then the path changes. That's the point at which I will pack all of you away, and I'll actually jog. And I won't be jogging from a health point of view. I'll find that I actually have more control jogging. So that's just the technical side. Yeah, we can all be a bit bionic over time, but it's wonderful. Say when I was down at the parking lot, I met a whole group. No, Mary Lou, I'm on Yamnuska. No, John, Laurie, I'm up on Yam. Sure. The slope right. Oops. Sorry, my that's weird. Gimbal just had a little, I don't know what. It's not cold for the gimbal, but this one up here, I'll show you this. There's the massive cliff face. So that is 470 million year old rock. I'm standing on 70 million year old rock. Scared of this up. And there's the angle of the slope out here. Hey, Kelly, you in Nova Scotia? We love Nova Scotia. Every time I go away, you must never sit beside me when I fly out of beautiful Halifax Airport because I always buy lobster. And then for the entire takeoff, I sing, "Farewell to Nova Scotia." And people eventually ask me to stop singing. But love Nova Scotia. So still, everyone has to now Google that song because it's so wonderful. Kelly, I'm going to try and get down to Nova Scotia to do some tours. And what's funny when we say get down, because it is, Nova Scotia is way further south than we are here. Down in the tip. Now you hear that wind that's coming in up and under my tooth right now, so I'm sorry if it's a little windy. But let's get down. I want to try and get down far enough in the last few minutes we have just to frame the big cliff for you. Also, I'm watching the rock because every now and then in these rocks you'll actually find fossils. You know, I'd be almost lucky enough in one of these fossils to find Jason Kenney's face in there. It's a little Alberta joke for everyone. But, sorry, the wind is just howling now. But I'm just, you see how I'm actually making pretty good time. But by almost hopping along, I actually have more control. I got to show you this rock here. This is really cool. Just like that one. See that? There on the side of that rock, that is quartz. See the white? Looks like snow. Quartz is way, way, way harder than limestone or dolomite, and that's often the fault line where it breaks. So, boy, the wind is really gusting up now, and I did want to move away from the cliffs too, because the wind can cause some rock fall. Elizabeth is telling me that I'm brave and strong, but Elizabeth was a farmer for over a decade in Puerto Vallarta, so I think that takes a lot more real hard work than hiking up a hill. I'll try not to get blown away. It's more whether you're able to hear me. But I do think there is sort of a majesty to the snow as well along the edges. If you joined Renan in Bolivia with me a few weeks ago when we did the kind of two mountain peak ones, he was up looking towards Chacaltaya, and Chacaltaya was the one ski area that they once upon a time had in Bolivia. So true, Patty. And I hiked, and you get up to 5,500 meters there, 17,500 feet. And I actually hiked up there my very first time 20 years ago when there was still a tiny bit of a glacier. And it's all gone now. Now look at this. This was for sure a bighorn sheep. I can tell by that hoof. Janice, don't you worry. If it takes me 2 hours to get down, I'll take 2 hours. I'm a little bit like, you see, these are my footprints before, but these are the sheep who obviously was here quite a lot before me. See, but honestly, don't you worry. I'm in my natural habitat here. So I was adapted for this environment somehow, probably because, yeah, lots of cougars. But actually, I don't have my cougar spray with me, but that's okay. I'm feeling pretty safe. Look at this. This was a limber pine here, this tree. And these are the ones that really get gnarly and knotted. And if you wonder about dominant wind directions, it's pretty easy. Don't you worry, Annie. Yeah, I was born on the side of the mountain. The Stony Nakota used to tell us about the giants that would fight, and as bits of them broke off, they created the mountains. But yeah, you get a sense of how steep this is. But why I wanted to come down here, and bear with me a couple more minutes, everyone, is I want to try and show you because from the road, if you ever drive out here, you all will one day when you come visit, you'll see these streaks down the side of the mountains, these scree fields. And this is where we walk up to then go climbing. And it is worth it because if you're a real rock climber, to be up on those cliffs behind me, the views are just so incredible. But you're also exposed to a lot of wind. And one of the things that we would climb were up through cracks like that. And you go up to these, you follow that crack up, and that's where you would use traditional protection. Yeah, I mean, scree fields exist really at any front slope of a mountain range, basically. And so what I'm going to do, because I don't want my friend Janice to be worried for me, I'm going to be coming down this scree field here. And as soon as I get into those trees, I will, I'm then on an easy walking trail. I do have an ice axe sitting nicely in the car, but honestly, an ice axe would do nothing for me here because it just wouldn't have anything to hang on to. Janice, absolutely. If it's too windy, what you're really worried about generally is rock fall, right? And all of this rock has come tumbling down off that mountain. The rock fall is a real thing. So, yeah, I have a gimbal. That's why I can put that in the ground if I need to. But actually, if I can just get down with everyone a little bit further, so I'm just watching my step here. The only part that makes me nervous is not the rock at all, everyone. It's actually because it's so warm, the snow gets a bit of an icy crust on it, and that's what's more slippery. So I was using that for going up, but coming down, I'm sticking much more to the actual rock here. But let me suddenly look around. Absolutely, Mikhail. Absolutely, yeah. Look at that sky. Now look back. So this is appropriately named Windy Gap down in there. So there is a quarry for some construction materials, but the highway to Trans-Canada is way out there, and that is literally called Windy Gap. And it is amazing how you can have wild winds there. And you see, the reason I didn't go and climb Rundle today is Rundle's another, well, 2 more ranges back, but you see how fast those clouds are moving, and I would have been really exposed up there. Garima! But that's why I didn't go up there, and that's why I came here. But also, so because Garima's here, I just want to tell her, she's my friend, yes. Well, this one is Yamnuska, or Mount John Laurie. But I say this is listed as a sacred site in the same way that Machu Picchu, Stonehenge are listed, and southeast of Calgary are medicine wheels of the Blackfoot Nations that date back at least as old as Stonehenge does as well. So we are in a very, very important sacred area here. And so Mount Yamnuska, and this is as east as you can get in the Canadian Rockies before you move out into the rolling foothills. And then out just east of Calgary, or really in the center of Calgary, you move into the mighty prairies all the way across until you get the Canadian Shield of Ontario. The sacred spirits are protecting me, I feel. I don't, I have to say, I'm not a person of faith, but if you don't feel this overwhelming sense of Gaia or living Earth around here, I somehow think we're missing it a little bit. And so I get to ski down here. Ruth, yeah, great question. And I actually have used up my time, so I'm going to pack everyone away soon. One evening, some point, I'm going to come down by the dam over there, and there are beaver lodges. So when it all, hey, thanks, Catherine. When it all melts, some evening I'll come and try and do an evening walk. It'll be luck of the draw whether we see the beavers or not, and then we would look back up here at this cliff. So let me just see how fast I'm going now. Now this isn't me being silly at all. This is me just letting the movement of the mountain take me. I'm just going to get down a little bit further and give you another view of the cliff faces up here. And then we will probably, oops, there we go, look at that. 470 million year old rock. and I'm just standing on baby rock. And so I really am on the side of a mountain. Oh, the glasses are almost coming off. Um, I am going to pack everybody away, and I'm going to head down, and I'm going to go get some lunch in Canmore, and then I'm going to do my afternoon tour in Canmore. You know what I mean? Oops. You know, there was a great skit once about saying, that's the one thing you never want to hear from your doctor. You're having a little local, you're awake, but they're numb. They work you away. Says, scalpel, knife, band-aid, or whatever. Oops. Say what? You should never hear a surgeon say oops. But yeah, the views are wonderful behind me there. Thank you, Robert. It's lovely to have everyone here. Well, Kelly, welcome on board. And not just, you're welcome to connect. We have a Facebook page, which is really fun because people just post the best things all day long. But also, on behalf of the hundreds of incredible guides on this website, thanks, Ruth. There are just so many wonderful people. Well, Donna, give those two kids a big hug. Tell them to come here and come scramble up mountains with me and Finn one day. But you can go, Kelly, from climbing in Alberta with me, and you can take off and hang out in, thanks, Diane, hang out in a pyramid or go down to Colombia. I'm going to Mexico on the 19th, on the 20th. I'm doing a cooking class. Now, don't worry, because I'm a terrible cook. My friend Oscar is going to do. And that'll be one where I really do ask for tips because I'll pay him, of course. Well, Marlon, it's nice. There's Mark. Sorry, Mark. I was chatting with Mark for a while coming up, and I told him I need to put him away just for safety. But yeah. So Kelly, Mark is a personal friend, but he's in Amsterdam, so he does big talks about hamsters, I think. And his friend Lee is coming to visit us in a couple of weeks. So there's just so many people to connect with, and come back and hang out with us and spread the word about Hago. So this, hey, merci Alain. Non, je suis bien prudent, t'assure. Et je sais pas quand je vais aller à Jasper, mais je me tenterai un jour. So, see my boots? They're not boots, they're shoes. There you go, Hoka's. I'm hooked on Hoka's, by the way, most expensive thing on my body here. So, all right, everyone. Lots of love. Take care. And you'll know I'm safely down if you sign up for my tour this afternoon in Canmore. All right. I'll just give you a moment of just descending with me, and we'll see you soon.